Hello and welcome to another episode of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the movies of Friday the 13th of May 2005. No horror movies this particular weekend, but we do have 6 movies, so we have a lot of films to cover here, including 2 big comedies with some heavyweight stars involved in it. One which features Jennifer Lopez and Jane Fonda, the other featuring Will Ferrell and Robert Duvall and Mike Ditka. And guess which one is actually the better movie? I think you might be pleasantly surprised. But we also have Jet Li and Bob Hoskins in a criminally underrated action movie. We also have an action movie that's not as good as you would think it would be, but then again, it probably was one of those movies that got dumped by the studio. But we also have 2 indie films as well, one featuring the future James Bond and the very sexy Sienna Miller. And we also have a ballroom dance movie that you wouldn't even tell that it was actually a Nickelodeon movie. So we have a lot of films to get to here. I've already wasted about a minute of your time here, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. We'll start off with the biggest new release of the weekend, Jennifer Lopez, Jane Fonda in the comedy Monster-in-Law.
I'm nervous.
Don't be nervous, she's gonna love you.
I'm still nervous. My God, I cannot believe you grew up here. What, no helicopter pad?
Oh no, there's one outside.
Kevin!
Oh, God, Mom, you look fantastic. I'll introduce you to someone. Mom, Charlie.
Very nice to meet you. It's a pleasure to meet you. Please sit down. This is really exciting. You're gonna be my mother-in-law. I know. Isn't it wonderful? I need something stronger than this.
Of course, I had to stop it there because Medieval Woman starts playing, but I want to show you the last part of the trailer because it ends on a pretty funny moment.
Congratulations. I'm so happy for you.
That's Jane Fonda telling Jennifer Lopez that's what you get for dating Ben Affleck not once but twice and breaking up with him twice. But funny story. Michael Vartan is also in here. Guess who he was dating around that time they made this movie? Jennifer Garner. Ben Affleck and Jennifer Garner ended up getting together once they broke up with their significant others. So basically, this was a year where significant others started movies that literally ended their original relationships, but then started new relationships because we'll later have Mr. and Mrs. Smith with Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie, and of course Brad Pitt broke up with Jennifer Aniston. Jennifer Aniston eventually went with Mr. and Mrs. Smith star Vince Vaughn. They would later star in a movie together called The Breakup, which that won't be until next year, but bottom line, everybody is going to date somebody, and everyone's going to make a movie with the complete opposite of the other person. So, but that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about Monster-in-Law, and I just literally got rid of the plot synopsis because I thought it was done. But after years of looking for Mr. Right, Charlotte, played by Jennifer Lopez, finally finds the man of her dreams in Kevin, only to discover that her mother, Viola, played by Jane Fonda, is the woman of her nightmares. A recently fired news anchor who is afraid she will lose her son the way that she just lost her career, Viola determines to scare off her son's new fiancé by becoming the world's worst mother-in-law. When Viola's longtime assistant Ruby, played by Wanda Sykes, does her best to help Viola execute her crazy schemes, Charlie decides to fight back and the gloves come off as the 2 women battle it out to see just who is the alpha female. And this was Jane Fonda's first movie that she did in 15 years. The last movie she did was Stanley and Iris, which was not a memorable film per se, and this was a hit. This was a hit when it came out. It was a financial success. It was a big hit at the box office. Critic-wise, not so much. I mean, it was mostly panned by critics, but people praise Jane Fonda, and she is legitimately the best thing about the movie. I mean, she has the best scene in the movie. That scene there where she's literally knocking Jennifer Lopez into a cake and like trying to suffocate her to death. And the rest, I wish the rest of the movie was as good as that, but unfortunately, yeah, it's about your typical standard romantic comedy. And I love Jennifer Lopez. I like a lot of her acting, but man, this was a wasted opportunity for her. And it's just like you're going up against a heavyweight actress in Jane Fonda. Like, you need to be up on that same echelon. And Jennifer Lopez has been against several prolific actors in the past. I mean, we've talked about her movies long and time again. on this particular show, and even in movies that she's done recently, but it just feels like she's just half-assing it, really. I mean, there's nothing really about her in this that really is, like, why is, like, for one thing, like, Jane Fonda really has nothing to really fear about this woman because Jennifer Lopez seems like a normal person, but Jane Fonda, like, she has this crazy idea of, like, the fact that she's going to lose her son the way she loses her career, which does not make a whole lot of sense when you really think about it, but yeah, this is just the typical type of romantic comedy we've seen done to so many times before. It just isn't funny. It just isn't enjoyable. It's just a film that just feels like an instant waste of time. Just like, it's a really bad movie. It's a shame because, like I said, Jane Fonda really is giving it her all. You could tell she's trying to save the movie, but they're not really giving her that many funny things to do in general. And, like, you've got a lot of very good talented people in here. Like, Wanda Sykes can be very funny. You know, Jennifer Lopez, I've seen a lot of great stuff. Michael Vartan can be very good. You know, Monette Mazur is also in the movie. The great Elaine Stritch is in here. A strong cast overall in this movie. Will Arnett is in the movie, for God's sakes. But, now, this film just really it just falls flat on so many levels. It's a movie that you expect so much more from this movie, and you give Jane Fonda the best stuff to do, but you don't have a good script to work around everybody else in the movie. And because of that, everybody else in the movie suffers as well as the storyline. And it's just a blown wasted opportunity on so many levels. Which the only reason I can think of this movie was a success was because it was released on Mother's Day. If you had released this movie at any other point in the year, outside of January or the dumpling months of August or September, this thing probably would have bombed big time, but because it opened up on Mother's Day, it was the big romantic comedy that you know, not just the dates can go to, but the daughters can take their mothers to. It was a hit, and that's the only real thing I can think about with this movie. It's kind of like Sweet Home Alabama. I don't get why that was a hit. The movie ain't that great, and this one, not that great. Jane Fonda's probably the best thing about it, but that's about it. So let's go ahead and get to a good comedy, a criminally underrated sports comedy. Will Ferrell starring in Kicking and Screaming.
Hey, where's Sam?
He's on the bench.
Kidding me. This spring. He's not gonna be a bench warmer. Not my son. I'm gonna coach the Tigers. It's a game of poetry. Inherit the turf. I've been way over my head. Universal Pictures presents
Dad, you gotta lighten up.
Will Ferrell. I want you to play dirty, but don't get caught. Kicking and screaming. Hey, you just served a plate of humiliation. How does that feel? Rated PG in theaters May 13th.
So Will Ferrell plays a good-hearted loser who suffers through his childhood from his competitive, overbearing sports coach father, played by Robert Duvall, which has resulted in him inheriting that attitude, which affects his relationship with his less than athletic son. When he becomes coach of his son's soccer team, which has a poor track record, he strives to beat a rival team coached by none other than his father. And somehow Mike Ditka gets involved. He's the neighbor, and yeah, this is a film that, it's interesting, because 2005, a lot of people thought Will Ferrell's career was like a one-trick pony. It was like had that lightning in a bottle moment, and then his career was fizzling out because he had two movies in 2005 that weren't hits, but they weren't flops either. Bewitched was probably the biggest flop of the two, but even then, it wasn't really that bad of a movie, and it wasn't really that big of a flop either. But there was a lot of people who were concerned that Will Ferrell's career was starting to take a little bit of a nosedive because Kicking and Screaming and Bewitched were not the big financial hits that stuff like Elf and Anchorman were, or even Old School. But really, I really love this movie. This is directed by Jesse Dillon, who's made some really good movies before this. This is actually the last film he actually directed. He also did How High, which is great. American Wedding is a fun movie. And this is a really fun film, too. It's a really great, underrated Will Ferrell movie that just is very funny. It's your typical by-the-numbers sports comedy. And yeah, it's an underdog story, but it's very, very funny at the same time. It's Will Ferrell doing what Will Ferrell does best, and I think everybody in the cast does a very good job here. Robert Duvall is great. I think Kate Walsh has a very good role in here. Mike Ditka's really funny in the movie. Like, he has a really good, fun role in this. Yeah, there's no reason for him to be in a film like this because it's about soccer and not football, but he's really good. He's really, really funny in here in general, and there's just a strong cast overall in this movie. Like Josh Hutcherson from the pre-Hunger Games. You got Stephen Anthony Lawrence from Even Stevens in here. Laura Keitlinger, Rachel Harris. Brad Pitt is in this movie for a little bit. He's got a cameo in here. Alex Borstein, Scott Adsit, Julia Campbell, Phil Lewis. A lot of people that you'll recognize, character actors. And it's a really good movie. It's a really fun film. It really is indeed a very fun film. It's not supposed to be a movie that's supposed to be taking itself too seriously, or it's supposed to be this deep, engaging film or something so clever and so smart. No, it's a good fun time. I think most people can go into it and see there's a lot of heart being put into this, and there's a lot of effort being put into this, and it's a very good, well-made film. It's a really fun film. It shows Will Ferrell in a role that's very, very fun. Like, he's having a lot of fun starring in this. Everybody here's having a good time. Nobody really feels like they're just doing this because they feel obligated to, especially since we'll get to Martin Lawrence's contribution to a kid sports comedy that really felt like he was just doing it because he needed a paycheck. We'll get to that one with Rebound later in the year. But this is a really good movie, and one I'd actually recommend. It's got a lot of good funny moments, a strong cast overall. I like it a lot. I think it's a very underrated film, probably one of Will Ferrell's more underrated films in general, with this and also the next movie that he stars in that we'll get to. But this is a great movie. I can't recommend this one enough. Easily check it out, kicking and screaming. Go into it, and you might have you should have a really good time with it. Is what I'm trying to say. So, speaking of criminally underrated gems, on to the next movie we have here, and that is Jet Li and Bob Hoskins in Unleashed.
Now you've basically turned a man into a dog. He's deadly. You take his collar off, he beats us all to death. Kill him. He's unstoppable. But on May 13th... You're my dog! Not anymore. Jet Li will be unleashed. Rated R. Starts May 13th.
So in this movie, you have two men cut off from the world in different ways that become unlikely friends and protectors in this offbeat action drama. You have Danny, played by Jet Li, who's a physically powerful but emotionally stunted man. Never given any sort of proper education, Danny has learned little in his lifetime but how to fight, and his minder, played by Bob Hoskins, treats him more like a guard dog than anyone else, using him in illegal, no-holds-barred brawls that earn Bart plenty of money but only reinforce Danny's violent alienation. When Bart is injured in an auto accident, Danny is left to fend for himself and stumbles upon Morgan Freeman, an elderly piano turner who has lost his sight. Sam is the first person to treat Danny with kindness, and the music he plays soothes the troubled soul of the fighter. However, Danny's fighting skills come in handy when Sam runs afoul of a pack of small-time crooks who believe he knows too much about their operations. This is directed by Louis Leterrier, who of course gave us The Incredible Hulk from 2008, did the Transporter movies. He did the first one, he's going to have the second one later in the year. Also, he did Fast X, Grimsby, Now You See Me. Very hit-and-miss career in general, as you can tell. I think after The Incredible Hulk, his career took a huge nosedive after that. But this is a really good movie. It's a really underrated film. One of the few good films from Rogue Pictures, which I guess was like Universal's attempt to try to copy Screen Gems' success. You know, to have these, movies aimed at the teens and all that. And this is a really, really impressive film. It also helps that you have a script by Luc Besson, who has proven time and time again that he can make a really good movie, even though he makes a lot of really bad movies in general. But a great cast overall. Jet Li is very good in the film. Morgan Freeman, even though you don't see him much in that trailer there, he is very good, and not just a throwaway role. Like, he actually is contributing to the film. And, like, Bob Hoskins, what can you say about Bob Hoskins? I mean, Eddie Valen's always going to be great. You have Kerry Condon, who's gone on to become a really successful star in general. Scott Adkins is in the film as well. It's a really good movie. It's a film that has a lot of good action sequences, and it isn't just your typical action movie. It has a lot of dramatic moments, a lot of emotional moments, moments that do carry the film over to something that's actually really worth it. The choreography is great. The cinematography is nicely done. Great music. It's a great movie. It's a really good film. I can't recommend it enough. Definitely a very underrated movie that definitely deserves a lot more attention. Seek it out. Unleashed. It's actually a really good film. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the next action movie we have here. Not as memorable as Unleashed, Mindhunters.
Preferably a cheerleader with great big... Oh, you gotta be kidding me. the FBI's newest profilers. If you're all smarter, you wouldn't be here. I just want you to be smarter. Trained to get into the minds of the most elusive serial killers.
This is Detective Jensen. He's gonna be working with you. Who wants to play some hide and seek? What do we know about it?
You know, he's just out of a bad relationship. He's barely looked twice at me and Sam.
Maybe you're not my type.
Trust me, I'm your type.
The simulation will be a test for your teamwork. What it's like to be inside the mind of a sociopath. He's called a puppeteer, and he has an obsession with time.
Time to look alive. It's just a simulation. It's no fun unless it's a challenge. This is a joke, right?
Someone killed JD, don't you get it? What simulation is this?
Somebody set that trap at 12 o'clock. Someone else is killed. He's marked us.
Where is this killer?
Someone who knows where we've been.
Now, someone trained to think like a killer
There's just one problem.
is about to become one.
There's no one here. But us.
And then they all just kill each other and the movie ends. That's probably the best case scenario, but sadly that does not happen. The movie has to continue, and this is a film that you can pretty much see everything that's wrong with it from the get-go. In the film, you have a group of FBI profilers in training who are tasked with tracking a serial killer to pass the exam. But they find themselves targeted by an actual killer. The team suspects that one of the members is their enemy, hiding amongst them. And you have a cast that includes Catherine Morris from Cold Case, LL Cool J, Johnny Lee Miller, Patricia Velasquez, Clifton Collins Jr., Christian Slater, and Val Kilmer. Christian Slater in a movie that's not as bad as Alone in the Dark, but might as well be as bad as Alone in the Dark. I mean, this is about as generic of an action film as you can get, and not even an action film, but like a mystery that's not even that interesting per se. Like, you could figure out right away what the twist is going to be in general. And oh, and by the way, this was a movie that was sitting on a shelf for 3 years. They filmed this back in 2002. They waited until 2004 to release this, and they didn't even release it finally until 2005 in the United States. 3 years. And it was a movie that Rennie Harlan had to tone down much of the violence in order to get a PG-13 rating. But, and yeah, you think that helps the movie giving us a PG-13 rating? Like, who the hell wants to see this? Like, it's just not enjoyable. The film is not enjoyable. The action sequences are not that great. Neither is the mystery aspect, because you can figure out who the killer is right away. And you have a script written by Akiva Goldsmith, too, who's an Academy Award-winning writer. Like, you expect so much better from this movie in general, but it's been sitting on a shelf for 3 years. What the hell did you think was going to happen? And, yeah, like, I mean, I get the idea. It's supposed to be kind of like sort of a revitalization of the 10 Little Indians thing of the storyline, which is a good storyline and could be done very well in a movie like this, but unfortunately it needs a better script and a better mystery to figure it out. But like, the movie doesn't even know what kind of a tone it wants to set with, honestly. Like, that trailer starts off as a comedy, a little bit of a comedy, and then all of a sudden it turns into like this horror movie, which out of nowhere, and there's no real tone of what this movie's supposed to be. The film is just kind of bland. There's nothing really all that amazing about it. It's just kind of a waste of time. Like, it's a film that, like I said, it was sitting on a shelf for 3 years. What more did I expect from this movie? Not much. But, so yeah, not much more to say about that one. That's Mindhunters. So, let's get to a much better movie again. Let's go ahead and talk about Daniel Craig in Layer Cake.
I'm not a gangster. I'm a businessman, giving people what they want.
Long live the king.
You're a smart boy, but you keep very bad company. We work to a few golden rules. 3 million done. Keep a very low profile. Never be too greedy.
You know what? People like you can't leave this business because you make too much money for people like me.
But I've always said, quit while you're ahead.
I had to stop it there, of course, because Ordinary World by Duran Duran started playing in the background. But that trailer does not include the scene that pretty much everybody remembers from this movie, and that's Sienna Miller in the sexy lingerie. This right here. I mean, just look at her. Jesus. I mean, that's about as the most memorable image as you're going to get from this movie in general. But this is a really good movie. The movie centers around a London-based criminal played by Daniel Craig, who works in the cocaine trade and wishes to leave the drug business. And you also have a cast that also includes the aforementioned Sienna Miller, Tom Hardy, Michael Gambon, Cole Meany, this is a really good movie, and this is probably the film that got Daniel Craig James Bond. I mean, I feel like this is the movie that got him that role, and you can see why. I mean, the guy has a lot of charisma. It's a great movie directed by Matthew Vaughn. This was his directorial debut, you know, back when Matthew Vaughn actually was worth something, and you know, not just remaking the same movie he made after Kingsman. I mean, let's be honest, he's been making the same movie since Kingsman: The Secret Service came out. But this was back when he had a lot of potential to him, and it shows that he had a lot of really good potential to his career. Not that they say that he hasn't now, but the last couple of movies he's made have not been that great. But this is a great movie. This is a really great stylized film. A lot of great aspects to it. It does feel like a Guy Ritchie movie in general, even though he's not really involved in this particular project. But it definitely feels like this guy took a lot of inspiration from what Guy Ritchie did so well. And it makes for a very good movie. It makes for a very entertaining film, a really engaging film. It's a really good film. And like I said, Daniel Craig is the star of the show. Daniel Craig is what carries the film over to this whole level to really make it the movie that really is his big breakout role. I mean, this is the film that, like I said, I feel like this is the film that got him James Bond. If not, it had to be close, because this is a great this is a performance that screams James Bond-esque. I mean, this is a really, really entertaining film. Can't recommend this one enough. Layer cake. So with that said, on to the last movie we have here, and that is Mad Hot Ballroom.
6,000 kids, 60 schools, 10 weeks, one dream.
5, 6, 5, 6, here we go.
Yeah, you wouldn't believe that this was a Nickelodeon movie. I didn't even think it was for the longest time, but even that trailer doesn't really show it. But Nickelodeon, I guess, eventually came onto it down the road. But in the film, you have a ballroom dancing program in the New York City Department of Education, the New York City public school system for 5th graders, and you have several styles of dance shown, such as tango, foxtrot, swing, rumba, and merengue. This is a documentary film too, and a pretty good one too. Even if you're not a big ballroom person in general, there is a lot to admire about the movie. It does have a nice heart to it. You do really like these characters, these kids a lot, and you want to see them live out their dreams of being in this ballroom dancing program. And the dancers are very good. They do a very good job of the choreography and all that. I mean, it's a really impressive film, and a great documentary that sadly got overlooked because there was a much bigger documentary that was coming up that did much better, and we'll get to that one when we get to March of the Penguins. But it's a great little documentary, one that you should definitely check out. Not much more to say about it, but a fun little documentary that's very different compared to what Nickelodeon usually does. I liked it a lot. Mad Hot Ballroom. And so with that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. The next time we meet, we've only got 2 big releases to look at, and one of them is the biggest movie of the year, and that is, of course, Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, the final conclusion to the Star Wars prequels. Can they finally go on a high note? Yes? A little bit of no. I'll explain that later on that episode tomorrow. But we'll also take a look at Paul Schrader's version of Exorcist: The Beginning, called Dominion, Prequel to The Exorcist. That's literally what the title is. Dominion, Prequel to The Exorcist. So those 2 movies we'll take a look at tomorrow. But until then, thank you so much for watching. And if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the place on the next page. Check out the previous episode. Also, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this on this channel. So, with that said, I am off. I will see you guys next time. And until then, as always, take care.